Okay, so you're having a holiday party, some people over, or you just really like pie and you want to bake more than one pie at once. Maybe you're like me and you have a plethora of pears on your tree and you don't know what to do with them. So you're trying all the different avenues to make them stay good instead of them going to waste. Well, you are in the right place. I am going to test today whether I can bake more than one pie in the oven, and I'm gonna show you my results. So in order to do that, I bought a couple different kinds of pies at Walmart. These were like almost $7 each, and I got one apple pie, Lattice apple pie. I'm not sure what that means, let me know. And then I got this strawberry rhubarb streusel pie. But anyway, we're going to test them out and see if we can bake these two pies in the oven at once. Now, in general, yes, you can bake two pies in the oven at once as long as they require the same baking temperature and they can both fit on the bottom rack. There are a lot of different pies that require different baking temperatures and different amounts of time for them to bake. Of course, you could bake two pies that require, say, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, but one needs to bake for 30 minutes and the other one needs to bake for 45 minutes. Of course, just take the one out that needs to bake for 30 minutes at that mark and let the other one bake a little bit longer. Now, if they do require different times, that's gonna be a little more complicated. So this one requires 60 to 70 minutes, and then this one requires 40 minutes at first, and then another 10 minutes after you put the crumble, or the streusel, I might say, on top. So I've got some different types of directions here, but we're gonna work with it. And there is my oven. The trick to this is just making sure that you put them on the correct rack on the oven, and that is most likely going to be the bottom rack for you, as long as you have a conventional oven, which is in most homes, such as this one here in my kitchen. Now, if you don't know what type of oven you have, then you most likely have a conventional oven, because the other type of oven is the convection oven, which is used in a lot of restaurants, or if you really love baking and cooking, you may have had that put in your home. But a convection oven basically has a fan in the back that circulates hot air all throughout the oven. So the idea is it's supposed to cook food more evenly, and then that heat goes back in to the fan and then back through. So that's why a lot of restaurants use it. Unfortunately, I don't have that type of oven. I just have your regular Joe Schmo oven, and so we're gonna work with that. We wanna make sure the pies get nice and cooked on the inside, right? The filling is nice and gooey, but completely cooked through. And then our crust on the top and the bottom is nice and golden brown and crunchy, nice and golden brown and crispy without burning, because there's nothing worse than a pie with burnt crust. Am I right? Well, I mean, I guess you could take it off. It's not that big of a deal as long as everything else tastes good. So we're gonna take these pies out. Let me just show you up close. This is the apple pie that I got. Thank you, Marie Callender's, by the way. I don't have time to make pies from scratch right now, so this is what we're working with. This is what it looks like. I'll show you up close. Frozen. Looks pretty good, all ready to go there. But as you can see, wow, my mic is caught on here. The crust is still raw, so that still needs to cook. Then we have the strawberry rhubarb streusel pie. That's what that one looks like. Looks delicious. Again, the crust needs to be cooked, and this crumble on top needs to be cooked and kind of turned into golden brown, I guess I'm trying to say. So it's not ready yet, and it's, can you hear that? Let's do it closer. That's frozen pie. So you wanna make sure you have the correct oven before you just put it on the bottom rack and let it cook for the amount of time that it directs you to on the instructions. If you do have a convection oven, you're gonna want to look up online, because it is going to change the temperature you're going to need to cook the food or the pies at if you have a convection oven. Convection ovens tend to work faster, cook faster. So I don't know if you've made the same mistake that I have. as putting the pie on the top rack, but it's not going to sufficiently cook the pie the way you're going to want it, unless you really like crispy burnt crust and undercooked filling. It's gonna burn the top, and then the filling is not gonna cook enough. So we wanna make sure and put it on the correct rack. Now ideally, you would wanna use a glass pie dish so you could see all the way through the bottom of the pie to see if it's evenly cooking. In this case, I have these aluminum pie dishes that came with it, so we're gonna work with that. But if you do have a clear pie dish, then that is best because that's gonna give you the best chance of success for your pie to turn out perfectly. Another little difference between a convection oven and a conventional oven is when you have a convection oven and you set it to like 350 degrees Fahrenheit, that oven is gonna stay at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. If you set a conventional oven to 350 degrees, it may fluctuate depending on where in the oven it is, and also just depending on the time. It might not be exactly 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's why it's important to check your pie, watch it while it's cooking, because you can't really just set it and forget it for the time that it says to. You just never know depending on how much your oven's temperature fluctuates. Now, one concern might be, well, if I cook different pies at the same time and they're different flavors, will they take on each other's flavors and they just won't taste right? And the answer is mainly no. Your pies are gonna be just fine as long as they're all kind of the dessert type, fruity type. If you have, like, say, a meat pie, a mince pie on one side, and then you have an apple pie or a pumpkin pie, I wouldn't advise that because you don't want your delicious apple or pumpkin pie taking on the flavors of the meat pie. You know when you open up an oven, it's got like a roast in it? It smells like meat. Like there's an overpowering smell of meat in the oven and then it goes all into your house. So that's kind of what could happen if you cook the more savory pies with the more dessert pies. Okay, so for these frozen Marie Callender's pies, it actually says to put them on a baking sheet. So I'm gonna follow those directions. These pre-done frozen pies are going to be a bit different than, of course, your homemade pies. With your homemade pies, you're gonna possibly make your own crust, you're gonna lay it in the pan, hopefully a clear pan, and then you're gonna put the filling in there, and you're not gonna put it on a baking sheet, most likely. But that's what it's telling me to do, so I'm gonna follow the directions to the best of my ability. Okay, so I put the two pies in the oven on the bottom rack on their baking sheet, and you can see that I left plenty of space, or as much space as I could, between the two. And they're pretty in the middle of that bottom rack right there, so hopefully they have the best chance possible. And I am going to tuck them in to the oven, and I am going to set the timer here for 40 minutes because that's how much time the first one needs to cook. Now, of course, I'm going to be checking the pies from time to time. I'm not just going to set them in there. I've made that mistake before. Baking is much more tedious and requires much more detail, in my opinion, than regular cooking. Of course, these are pre-made pies, so it's definitely not from scratch. I don't want to open the oven too much because I don't want too much heat to escape, and then the pies aren't really getting their fair chance at all the heat, and then they're taking longer and longer. So I'm going to wait probably a good 20 minutes at least to check the pies and just see if they're on the right track, and then we'll go from there. All right, so my pies are out of the oven. Look at this strawberry rhubarb streusel crumble, whatever you call it. It looks absolutely fabulous. The crust on the outside is nice and golden brown and crispy, and then the topping, the crumble topping, looks great. It's nice and golden brown. The filling is all cooked. And then the apple pie also looks great. The crust on the top on the outside is golden brown. Of course, the apple pie had to cook a little bit longer, so I took the strawberry rhubarb pie out, and then the apple pie cooked about 20 minutes longer. But it was totally okay because the oven required it to be the same, around 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you are planning for a holiday party, you're having people over, you're having a dessert party, or you're just cooking for a large family, maybe you have 10 children, who knows? This is a great way to do it. You can save time, you can cook other things in the meantime, you don't have to cook them at once. So we have articles all about how much pie you need for a party, which rack to put your pie on, and of course, can you cook multiple pies at once in the oven? All of those are on our website, cookforfolks.com. Go ahead and check out those links in the description below. And thank you so much for watching. In the meantime, watch one of these videos and we'll see you next time.